We have another quick start today, with Tom playing a tapped Clifftop Retreat, Extra playing a Swamp, and a Blade of the Bloodchief, while Sam has a tapped Meticulous Archive, Surveilling to the Graveyard, and John ends the first turn cycle with a Command Tower. Tom starts off his second turn with a Bleachbone Verge and a 1-2 punch of Soul Ring into Rakish Air, triggering Edgar to make a Vampire token before passing the turn to Extra. Extra plays a Mountain, then casts a Jadar, Ghoul Caller of Nephalia, followed by a move to his end step, triggering said Jadar to make a zombie and pass to Sam. Sam plays a Murkwater Pathway alongside a Rona, Herald of Invasion, giving the turn to John, with John playing an Amonkhet Raceway, putting his speed to 1, and casting a Celestia Signet to round out his turn. Tom plays a Haunted Ridge, then starts with a Patchwork Banner naming a Vampire, followed by a Forerunner of the Legion, triggering Edgar to make a Vampire, and Forerunner to fetch up a Bloodletter of Aclazotz to the top of his deck. Next he goes to combat, sending both Air and a token at John, triggering Air to give both creatures a counter, before giving the turn to Extra, whose only play for the turn is a tapped Blood Crypt and a pass. Sam first activates Rona to draw and discard, then casts his commander, Hashaton, Scarab's Fist, triggering Rona to untap. After that, he plays a tapped Rafine's Tower and passes the turn to John. John plays a Neil Verge Pathway, then goes on a 2-drop Parade, casting a Boros Signet, Talisman of Conviction, and a Gate Instigator to finally end his turn. Tom plays a tapped Godless Shrine and casts his commander, Edgar Markov. This triggers Forerunner to buff the smaller vampire, followed by a move to combat, where Extra intervenes with a timely Terminate, destroying the freshly played Edgar. Having plenty of reserve, Tom sends his Air at John, Forerunner at Extra, and the Vampires at Sam, once again triggering Air to give each one a counter, before giving the turn to Extra. Extra plays a Swamp, then casts his own commander, Evereth, Viceroy of Plunder, equipping her with the Blade, and using her to sacrifice a zombie for a counter, gaining an extra 1 thanks to Blade. Next he moves to his end step, triggering Jadar to make a replacement zombie, followed by a Rona activation by Sam, drawing and discarding a card, before going to his turn. Sam plays a Morphic Pool, and casts a Homunculus Horde, activating Rona to draw and discard, triggering Horde to make a copy of itself. With nothing else to do, he passes. John first casts his commander, Samut, the Driving Force, triggering Instigator upon entering, dealing 1 to each opponent, and increasing the speed to 2. He proceeds to combat, attacking Tom with both Samut and Instigator, followed by a pass back to Tom. Tom first casts Bloodletter of Aclazotz, triggering Edgar to make a Vampire, and Forerunner to buff both himself and the bigger Vampire token. Next is a Knight of the Ebon Legion, again having Edgar make a Vampire, while Forerunner buffs both smaller vampires. Lastly, he goes to combat, sending Air plus Forerunner at John, a Vampire at Sam, and another one at Extra. With the damage being done, Air triggers to give them a counter, followed by a move to the end step, where Ebon gets a counter of his own, before giving the turn to Extra. Extra plays a Swamp, then begins his onslaught with a Crime Novelist into Prize Statue, making a treasure as it enters. He uses Evereth to sacrifice Statue, triggering its effect to make a new treasure, while Novelist makes a red and gains a counter. Next he sacrifices a treasure to make black, triggering Novelist once more, using all the floating mana to cast the Mayhem Devil. With it in play, he activates Evereth to sacrifice his zombie, triggering Devil to ping Tom, and Blade to add a counter. With all that done, he attacks with Evereth at Tom, and goes to his end step, making a zombie with Jadar. Sam plays a Tainted Isle, and activates Rona to draw and discard Marnia's Calgar. This triggers Horde to double, Hashaton to make a tapped zombie copy, and Marnius to draw. He then casts a Fel on Bloodletter and passes to John. John first casts Burnout Bastronaut, dealing 1 with Instigator as it enters and moving the speed up to 3. He follows it up with Attempt with Vengeance for X equals 6, with no one accepting his temptation. 6 elementals are made as a result, triggering Instigator 6 more times, before casting a Felidar Retreat, and playing a Battlefield Forge, triggering Retreat to give his board a counter, and Vigilance. Not having any flyers to defend, John initiates an all-out attack at Extra, who blocks as much as he can, but still ends up dead. With 1 less player, John passes a turn back to Tom. Tom plays a Swamp, and once again casts his commander, Edgar Markov, triggering Forerunner to buff him up. This time, he moves the combat uninterrupted, sending Edgar, Air, Forerunner, and Vampire at John, triggering Edgar to give each Vampire a counter. Trying his best to survive, John uses 3 elementals to block Edgar, Air, and the Vampire, letting Forerunner connect, and having it gain a counter from Air. In the end step, Ebon gains another counter before moving the turn to Sam. Sam keeps up his defense, playing a Bright Climb Pathway and activating Rona to draw and discard, triggering Horde to double alongside Calgar to draw. He then casts Rafine, Scheming Seer, untapping Rona, and passing the turn to John. John starts his turn with an Anim Pakal, 1000th Moon, having Instigator deal 1 and increasing the speed to 4. Next he plays a Brushland, triggering Retreat to give a counter plus Vigilance, followed by an activation of Raceway to give haste to Anim. He finally goes to combat, sending everything at Tom, triggering Anim to get a counter, and make 2 attacking gnomes who deal 2 upon entering thanks to Instigator. Not having a wide enough defense, Tom accepts his defeat, leaving John and Sam to duel it out. John then goes to Zen Step, where Sam jumps in using Rona to draw and discard Mondrak, triggering Hashaton to make a tapped zombie copy, and Calgar to draw a card, which makes Horde trigger, tripling their numbers thanks to Mondrak. Sam then simply sends his overwhelming Horde at John, taking him out and taking the victory for himself.